Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is your DC Spotlight for November 1st, 2022. Hope everybody had a happy Halloween. Bit of a smaller week of DC books. Batman-centric again. I suppose that's no big surprise. You've got the regular Batman book. We have the long-awaited Batman Joker team-up from Marc Silvestri. We have Joker, Man Who Stopped Laughing. We have Gotham City Year One. We have Sword of Azrael, Poison Ivy. So yeah, definitely a Batman heavy week, but some solid books. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, wasn't a bad week. I'm glad. I'm glad it's a smaller week. It's nice to have a smaller week once in a while. I still manage, unfortunately, to not read one of the comics, and that was through my own foolishness because I did have time to read it. But in any event, I do. We are filming this when technically it is Halloween, and I am wearing my Black Adam Halloween shirt and with my Black Adam cap arrived just in time, so I'm very happy. So it's I got to wear this for another stream yesterday, so it's good. So happy belated Halloween to you, my friend. Did you dress up?
I did not, but as you said, it is Halloween as we're recording this. There's every chance somebody's going to knock at my door right behind me, and the dogs are going to go crazy looking for Halloween. I got a big stack, a big pile of candy, and a big stack of comics to give away if people come to the door. So we'll see.
That's good. Right?
That being said, let's go ahead and dive in. First book we're going to talk about, Big Stick Energy, as opposed to that other word instead of stick. Part 4, Monkey Prince, issue number 8 from writer Gene Luen Yang. Bernard Chang does the art, Marcelo Maiello on colors, Janice Chang on letters. This is as fun as Monkey Prince has been. But I will say, if there's any negative I have, and I understand I'm really nitpicking here, I don't feel like Monkey Prince as a title has really been evolving. I know when I spoke to Gene last and had him on the show, he talked about the myth of Monkey Prince and how much it's tied into Chinese folklore and mythology, which is great, that being the Monkey King. And we got a hint, kind of a cliffhanger ending of the first arc of the Monkey King and other hints of the Monkey King showing up, but we're still waiting for him to show. So it's just a question of pacing. I wonder if it's working, but the irreverent feel of the book is still there. The thing that Rocky picked up on even before I did, this whole idea of the Monkey Prince, coming to realize that his parents are basically mad supervillain scientists and keep getting jobs as henchmen for different supervillains, and how that might affect his choice to be a hero, or how it might affect how he sees his parents. Like, all that is starting to pick up steam as well. So again, Marcus is an interesting character. He certainly has evolved. I just wonder if the character of Monkey Prince himself is evolving fast enough. I'm sort of ready to take the next step to the next level, if you will. But still a solid book, and the Bernard Chang art and Marcelo Maiello colors are fantastic. What do you think?
Well, first I have to give a shout out to the I think it's the cover C. It has the thinker, like that famous statue by
Oh yeah,
I can't remember the famous. He's a famous sculptor, but
I think
anyways,
it's
the
Go.
statue.
Isn't it Gauguin?
Gauguin, thank you. I think that's correct. But with
Yep.
Aquaman holding the head of Monkey Prince and he's sticking his tongue right at him, I think it's classic. I want to get that just for the cover. I think it's perfect that it totally embodies the Monkey Prince, and it reminds me of the very first issue of this series where Monkey Prince at the end loses his head as he's battling Damian and Batman. So I kind of a nice little. I think it's a nice little callback to that, whether that was intentional or not. I I actually I agree with you that there's I have mixed feelings about this series so far, but there's no denying that it's a lot of fun, and I actually found myself enjoying this issue more than I have a number of the previous ones. We've got so much happening in this particular issue that a lot of it has to do with my own struggles to get a handle on Monkey Prince's mythology. But it is all there. But there is a lot of substance to his mythology, and I have to have a little bit probably more patience reading the various issues. There's in this issue he's trying Pigsy or Shifu Pigsy, his sort of like pig-looking mentor is trying to get him to meditate to Ryu Jinghu Bang, who is some sort of powerful god who will give him more powers. And that's essentially what he's doing while he's trying to battle Aquaman. And then they're attacked by members of the Trench. And ultimately, at the end, you get a mixture of all this. It's we got Aquaman and this sort of and this also this dragon race that is fighting alongside Aquaman. They're fighting against the Trench. There's this new villain. There's King Silverhorn, and at the end of the issue, he's apparently been surpassed by this King Firebolt. And I'm not. I'm sure all these various kings are part of the Monkey Prince mythology. I wish I wish that there was almost I almost feel like there was a little bit of a like what Hickman does in his comics. At the end of each of these comics, there was like a hierarchy of all these gods in the Monkey Prince mythology universe. Almost, I'd like to be spoon fed a little bit. It's not that I'm an idiot. It's not my first comic I've read, but I actually this does seem like a universe that I could get lost and have a lot of fun in. And I suspect that if I was younger, I probably would have more patience. So shame on me because I am there's a lot of fun to be had here, and I want to tip my hat off to Gene Liu Yang. Bernard Chang on the art does a really good job, and Marcelo Mielo on the colors. There's a lot of fun to be have here, and this issue does end with some mysterious forces breaking Marcus's parents, who end up in prison. They end up somebody breaks them out of prison at the end of this issue, and we don't know who it is. So there's larger forces at play. And next issue, they're off to Metropolis, where it's teased that the Monkey Prince will have a crush on Supergirl. So I kind of like that. This is a fun comic, and when people are talking about, we complain about. You and I are like broken records looking for the hope in the DC universe, and we're hoping that's around the corner. There's a lot of fun to be had, and usually there's a lot of fun to be had with Monkey Prince. Oh, sorry, you're on mute there, Jace.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And the other thing is Bernard Chang. We talked about this, and Gene Luen Yang. We talked about this when Gene was on the show. How he's, Monkey Prince is basically taking a tour of the DC universe. We're seeing how he fits in, and that was always the plan. But I know it can sometimes feel like Monkey Prince maybe is being a little forced on us. I mean, we've heard rumors of him playing a big role in the Magic event that's coming up next year. So I think, again, just talking about the evolution of the character, I don't think he's kind of where he needs to be yet in terms of even how he sees himself. Marcus went from a very sort of, what's the word? I mean, a kid that just wasn't very self-assured. He was kind of shy. He was kind of reserved, and his alter ego as a Monkey Prince has sort of let him, break out of that shell, having this alter ego where he can say and do whatever, and he does sometimes to very comedic effect. He says things maybe that he even shouldn't. So I think there's a balance that needs to happen, and I imagine that's the journey that this creative team is taking Marcus on. So it'll be interesting to see him. I mean, he's never not going to be wisecracking, and he's probably never going to be a character that doesn't kind of make mistakes due to his impetuousness, I think. But it'll be interesting to see him part of a larger event like Lazarus Island and see how he fits in. So,
Yeah.
all right. Up next, we have Blood Syndicate, Season 1, Number 6. This is the final issue. Run This Town. It's written by Geoffrey Thorne. Pencils are by Chris Cross. Inks by Juan Castro. Colors by Will Quintana. And letters by Andworld Design. I have sort of mixed feelings about this. And, man, it comes back to something I say all the time in terms of pacing is the hardest thing to get right in comics when you start out. And once again, here we have a DC creator whose idea is fantastic, but he maybe doesn't have quite enough room to execute it to the idea's full potential. So we know that Inferno, or Holocaust rather, has taken over Paris Island. He has basically burned all the other gang members, like literally burned them to death, and has taken over the island. He's told the American government, stay out. I run this island now. And we have the members of the Blood Syndicate, who a lot of them were former gang members, who have decided to sort of fight for the side of angels. But in a way, they're just as flawed as Holocaust, maybe not quite to that extent, but they have their own agenda and they have their own things that they're going for. So that was kind of the setup. And so they do attack Holocaust, and they try to create a plan. I mean, we know they have some members that have been in the military, and so they try to create a plan to defeat Holocaust, sort of teaming up and using all their abilities together. And it goes horribly wrong, and they're all killed. That's just how powerful Holocaust is. And for a little bit, it doesn't ring true in my mind, because I just feel like they've made Holocaust too powerful here. I feel like they should have had the ability to defeat Holocaust a little easier. But be that as it may, for the purposes of the story, they're all killed. But then we find out that one of the members of the team has the ability to kind of go back, to kind of travel back through time, and warns the team before they first attack Holocaust, and they take a different tack, and they end up defeating him. But it all feels very rushed. It all feels a little bit ex deus machina, like, oh, by the way, we didn't tell you, but this one character has these powers that you didn't know about, and it lessens the impact of their death. And even when they die in the initial attack of Holocaust, even that feels so rushed. I'm not even sure. I'm like, are they dead? Has it really gone that poorly? Like, it just happened so quickly. It's almost like, and again, just a matter of having enough real estate. It's almost like the first half of this battle should have been one issue, and they could have left it with a cliffhanger of them kind of being completely defeated and Holocaust declaring victory. And then the following issue, they could have had them brought back and attacking in a different way. I think that would have worked a lot better. But this ends up just feeling really rushed. And then at the end, they basically don't sound that much different than Holocaust. Once they win, they sort of just say the same things that Holocaust was saying. This is our island. Don't mess with us. And when they're called out on that, they're like, yeah, but we're the good guys. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. I mean, they are supposed to be heroes. And I get it. They've got chips on their shoulder. You know, they're supposed to represent minorities, people that have been sort of forgotten and kind of left alone. And so once they finally defeat Holocaust, and Icon and Rocket show up, and they're like, okay, Paris Island is free now. They're like, well, hold up. That doesn't just mean we're open to whatever. We're going to allow ourselves to keep being exploited and manipulated and forgotten. Like, we're in charge here now. We want to have our own kind of self-determination. And I get that. But again, it feels, it rings a little hollow. It rings a little bit of hypocrisy, as I said. So I have mixed feelings about the issue. The art by Chris Cross is fantastic. I think it's going to be hard for me to really judge this series until we get a second arc, because really this first arc is just really the team coming together. And even when Holocaust shows up at the end, and he's like, well, who are you guys? And they're like, we're the Blood Syndicate. That's what the leader says, and the rest of the team's like, "Wait, what did you call us?" Like, they're not even really a full team yet. So I think the jury is still out on how well this is going to work. But what is clear is that the creative team, Geoffrey Thorne and Chris Cross on the art, they're all in. They're putting their all into this in this series, and if it's a lack of execution, it's only, as I said, because you're just so limited in what you can do. And I feel like that's especially the case with some of these milestone titles where they're drawing from things in the past. So it's almost like they might be a little bit in a rush to get through the origin story, to get to like the original stuff that they want to tell, that's not necessarily beholden to the past. That just might be my interpretation. Because this is enjoyable, it is good, but again, I think it would have worked better as a two-part series. So
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it, Rocky. I know you didn't get a chance to read it, so
Well, it's funny.
uh,
I've skim read it, and I've read the parts that were as you've been reviewing it, and I really like the going back, and I'm a sucker for that motive. That's not the first time that trick of being able of getting defeated. It reminds me of that Tom Cruise movie where he keeps dying and he keeps going
yeah,
back to try to
I
do
love
it
that movie.
do it
Yeah,
right. And so I love that as a plot element, even though it might be a little tropey. I'm a sucker for it. I love it. So I'm really anxious to go back and read the details. But I like this. It's something like that. It's something where it would be fun to play that out. I can see that playing out for 2 or 3 issues even, because that does sound like a lot of fun. But at the same time, kudos to Geoffrey Thorne. He had 6 issues there, and there was a lot of story crammed in here for 6 issues. And he certainly he didn't insult the reader's intelligence. He in terms of dialogue, he had them speak their native tongue, where we, a couple of white guys like you and I, like, at least for me, I know I struggled sometimes understanding the sort of the use of the language, but this was a lot of fun. At least the first 5 issues, and from what I can see in the first 6, as you've described, I'm really anxious to read it once we're done reviewing it. Once at the end of the night here, but yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm just really curious what the second arc is going to bring. So, all right, up next we have Batman number 129, Failsafe Part 5 from writer Chip Zdarsky. Jorge Jimenez is the artist. Tomei Morey on colors. Clayton Cowell on letters. And before you get into talking about the book, some great covers here. Again, especially the Batman of Zur and R cover. It's probably my favorite one. I think it's a Francesco Mattina cover. But the other thing I wanted to call out is how the credits are incorporated into kind of the cornice of a building, a la Will Eisner, how he used to incorporate the credits into the art. I love it when artists do that. So anyway, what were your thoughts on this?
I I'm really enjoying this. This is just a fantastic adrenaline rush. This is I mean, Batman barely escaped failsafe last issue, and yet he ends up seeking sanctuary and at Atlantis. And in this issue, it's just failsafe essentially figuring out a failsafe, locking down Gotham City, taking over Oracle, taking over Gotham City. But unfortunately, we've discovered as Batman narrates the issue, Batman from Atlantis is realizing that failsafe is great at potentially tracking him down to kill him. And while failsafe is not killing any heroes, what failsafe is doing is that failsafe is ignoring the people of Gotham. Failsafe isn't protecting the people of Gotham. It's very, very interesting here the way this is sort of scripted here. It would appear that Batman, when he was younger, as his alternate self, the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, he created failsafe as a failsafe in the event that he ever crosses the line and kills somebody. And it's revealed here that Alfred was the one that was supposed to essentially reprogram him, or essentially shut failsafe off. And Alfred knew the codes, but of course Alfred's dead. Alfred's no longer around. And it's interesting that failsafe is very powerful, and it can take out the Justice League and incapacitate. They say, I think, like 83% of the world's heroes trying to get into Gotham to help, but failsafe is blocking it off from the rest of the world. 17% of the heroes haven't even tried because they're doing their own thing. Meanwhile, failsafe has narrowed down the fact that Batman is in Atlantis, so Batman is expecting an attack from failsafe, which of course comes, and it ends up with this big battle that moves all the way from Atlantis to the Justice League satellite. And it's just back and forth between failsafe outwitting Batman, Batman outwitting failsafe, and it's really Batman in battle with themselves. A couple of potential little criticisms here, constructive criticisms, and maybe I'm being too harsh, but one thing that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with is the idea that Batman, as Batman or Zur-En-Arrh, creates failsafe. Failsafe is good at getting rid of a Batman who kills, but he wouldn't program failsafe to protect the people of Gotham City. I found that really odd. But I guess maybe the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, maybe I'm forgetting that aspect of Grant Morrison's storyline there. Did the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh not protect the people of Gotham? I'm surprised that the psychological side of Batman, that Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, who created failsafe, would not program him to protect the people of Gotham, because it's quite clear here that failsafe doesn't care about the people of Gotham being harmed at all. He's not protecting them, but yet he's zealously going after Batman. So the programming is surprisingly one-dimensional, and for a programming that was even oversaw and even there was oversight by Alfred himself, I'm surprised at that. I find that somewhat hard to believe. I also find it hard to believe, and again, maybe being just overly critical here, I find it a little bit odd that failsafe is this good. The Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, and you can correct me, Jace, or people in the chat can correct me. I thought that Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, failsafe was corrected when Batman was still young and inexperienced and obsessed, and still in his days where he was plotting to overcome the Justice League in the event they go rogue, etc., etc., and the Tower of Babel storyline and all that jazz. I just find it really hard to believe that if if Batman created failsafe, if I had a failsafe that Batman created during Batman Year 1 versus Batman at Year 10, I'm pretty sure the Batman of Year 10 failsafe would defeat the I'm sure Batman Year 10 should be able to defeat failsafe of Batman Year 1. And I'm not seeing that yet. So far, even at the end of this issue, it seems to me as if failsafe is really kind of making a mockery out of Batman here. And, you know, I just find that interesting. And at some point, I'm sure the at some point the experience that Batman has gained since creating failsafe as Batman of Zardasky, surely that must come into play at some point. It hasn't come into play yet. I'm not really complaining. It's a nitpick because I think it's going to come into play later. But the action here is fantastic. The art by Jose Jimenez is absolutely fantastic. I'm loving this. It's an adrenaline rush. It's go, go, go. I got to the end and I was anxious. I didn't want this to end. And with Batman ending up in space, trying to get back to Earth, the Justice League satellite, he manages to pull a trick from Superman 2, with teleporting failsafe
Yeah.
away from the satellite, while he was trapped, tricking managed to trick failsafe to get he's safely inside the teleporter while everything teleports around him as opposed to Batman within the Justice League satellite. I thought that was inspired, even if it was ripped off from Richard Donner. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think Chip Zardasky's done a great job. And again, Jimenez on the art is really good. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought of Superman 2 as well. Oh, you made the lights go on out here while you were safe in there. Yeah, 100%. Um, here's the thing. Like, I'm a big Zdarsky fan. Like, I didn't used to be. I'd read his Howard the Duck stuff. I'd read Sex Criminals. It didn't really do it for me. Um, in fact, I think you and Trevor from Dark Knight Nation and I were on a podcast one time, and I was saying, yeah, I'm not seeing it. And then I read his Daredevil stuff. I read his Spider-Man life story, which I didn't necessarily like, but I could see how much emotion that he put into things. And Stillwater is great. And so when I heard he was going to be on Batman, I was excited. His Batman story about Bruce going around and training the night was very, very good. But this one has been a little bit paint by numbers for me. Right away, as soon as Failsafe showed up, I knew exactly. It was easy to guess. Okay, this is something that Batman himself created to defeat himself if he ever goes rogue. It was so telegraphed. And so while I can't say anything about the structure of it itself um, being bad, it's a very good technical comic. The pacing is good, the dialogue and everything. The story itself, it's just, while you're right in that the action is compelling and I want to know what happens next, it doesn't feel original. It feels a little bit derivative to me. And I've talked before about, okay, so the failsafe had it used some kryptonite, it stabbed Superman or whatever, but months have gone by. I talked about last issue, the big time jump. You're really telling me nobody can figure out how to defeat this thing? Superman can't fly up above Gotham in orbit and just destroy this thing with his heat vision. Like, there's a little bit of
Yeah.
kind of a leap in faith that we're supposed to take. And I understand reading comics in general is just kind of a suspension of disbelief, but this is kind of pushing it. So set all that aside and just read this for what it is. Then yeah, I think it can work. And to your point, and maybe this goes back to an issue of space, but room in the comic to tell more of it. Because you're right, Batman it does seem like Failsafe is one step ahead of Batman the entire time, but then he does manage to teleport out. He does manage to do something that Failsafe is not expecting. So yeah, it might come into play that Failsafe doesn't know Batman as well because of the experience that he's had. But you would think, if, as you said, if this construct of Failsafe was created so long ago and Batman's had so many experiences in between, and a lot of these other heroes and powers and aren't there can they send Naomi after Failsafe? Like, does Failsafe, you know what I mean? Like, Naomi wasn't around.
She's finally
But
useful.
right, exactly. But the other part of it, if I want to, try to win my no prize or whatever, what I could say is, well, Failsafe was stored in the Batcave. Would it not be tied into the Bat computer? And as Batman is entering new information and new files or whatever, that
Yeah.
the intelligence, the knowledge of Failsafe kept getting updated as well. So maybe it's not 10 years
Possibly.
behind in experience.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to help Zdarsky out, if I'm trying to
Sure.
win
Yeah.
I guess we'll call it a Zoe prize
Yeah.
for
That's our
Zardasky.
head canon. We're trying to
No prize.
justify the
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
uh,
I sort of, and again, I don't want to say that this isn't good. I don't want to say Zadarsky's not doing a great job, but if you go and you read, and I love the Charles Soule run of Daredevil, everybody that listens to the podcast for a long time knows that. But what Zadarsky's done with Daredevil's been so interesting because it's not like he's doing wholly new ideas. I mean, he put Matt Murdock in jail, just like we've seen, previous
lots of times, right?
writers do, like Mark Waid and Brian Michael Bendis and what. But he's doing it in a way that feels fresh, that feels new, that feels emotional. I'm waiting for Zdarsky's Batman run to get to that point, right? And even though this is, again, sort of a paint by numbers, it doesn't necessarily have that fresh feel that I'm looking for yet. I mean, this is just the first arc, and it does have fantastic art, as you mentioned, by Jorge Jimenez. So I guess I'm having mixed feelings about it. I am enjoying it more than the James Tynion run, um, just because it felt like all James Tynion did was give us the Joker War and then the aftermath. And I was looking for something a little more. We all know how I feel about the Joker, so yeah, it's this is definitely a different take, and it's nice to see Batman, push to his limits. But then the other thing that we worry about, obviously, is the power creep, as we've talked about. Are we just pushing Batman to become even more and more powerful, giving him these like world-beating threats to overcome? So anyway, I think it's solid. I think it's worth reading, and I'm very curious how Batman is going to ultimately defeat Failsafe. Now the backup, I am Gun Part Two, also written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Leonardo Romero, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Clayton Cowles. Um, I'm not really feeling this. It's not. Again, maybe it's because it's too wrapped up in the Joker. Um, I just don't understand the point of it. Once again, I'll just say,
Yeah.
can we just get rid of the backup and charge me $1 less, because it feels like, honestly, a waste of space and money. To be honest, it's not doing anything for me. Didn't care for the art style of Romero. It's very Francesco Francavilla in a way, but without the strong storytelling that Francavilla has. It's very choppy in its storytelling. So I'm just not a fan. Anything to add about the backup?
Not really. I don't really, I don't, I, it just seems that I'm not sure how it really adds to my understanding of the story. But the thing is, the reason why maybe I'm wrong about this is Sardasky is like, I'm wondering if is the backup story somehow going to link into the actual main story? Because I really don't feel it's done that so far. Because in this story, it just shows Batman in his younger years as with the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh taking over his consciousness, taking over his body to fight the Joker, and telling the Joker that the Joker's going to die. And I just, that's, I mean, it's still cool, and I actually like the artistic style. That this our style is actually right up my alley. Leonardo Romero, I really do like his art. I'm just not really sure how that links into the main story, and maybe it doesn't. But I this the main story is so good. When the story Sardasky is his own worst enemy here, and I mean that probably has an overhanded compliment or an underhand or whatever the phrase is, because I like the main story so much that I really don't want a backup. I'd rather have more of the main story with more action and more of that Jimenez art, but than this. But I mean, I do want to give a shout out to Leonardo Romero. I do like the art, Jordi Belair in the colors. I mean, the creative team is pretty good. I just, again, I agree with you. I'm not really feeling it. I'm still feeling the excitement from the main storyline.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the backup story. The only use of it, or how it ties in, is just, yeah, Batman had mental health issues at one point, and that led to the creation of Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. Which, again, it's like we just had the story Batman the Knight, right? Where, if anything, what it showed was Bruce's strongest power, or if he has any kind of superpower, it's that indomitable will, right? The I will never give up. I will never cease my war on crime. I mean, if there's anything that Batman doesn't have, it's mental weakness. Not to say that you can't call dressing up like a bat and choosing to fight crime mental illness in and of itself, but for him to have like a mental breakdown and need to take time off from being Batman, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't ring true in my mind. So
Well, not only
Anyway,
that, isn't it interesting that every time there's a major storyline with Batman having a mental breakdown, that he's always a super genius when he's psychotic? Like, look at the Batman who
yeah,
laughs. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Whenever Batman loses his mind, he's always he's even more smarter than he is when he's Bruce Wayne. It's just kind of hilarious in a way.
yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Gotham City Year One, issue number 2, written by Tom King. Pencils are by Phil Hester, inks by Eric Gapster, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Clayton Cowles. Starring Slam Bradley, going back to Bruce's grandparents and their granddaughter being kidnapped. We don't really know who's behind it, but this is a Gotham City that's much more innocent. We were reminded here through context about how Gotham City at this point is even safer than Metropolis. So this really is the origin of Gotham City. It's when Gotham City kind of went off the rails and became, a seedier sort of crime-ridden city that eventually gives rise to Batman. So in a way, it's kind of the origin of Batman, yeah, in some way. Now, I mentioned last time that I'm not always the biggest fan of Phil Hester's style of art, especially when it comes to superhero books. I feel like he should stick to crime noir or slice of life. Well, this very much is crime noir.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
and I said when I talked about maybe not being the biggest Phil Hester fan in terms of his aesthetic, that by the time I got to the end of the series, I probably would be like, well, this is Phil Hester's book. I don't think anybody else can draw it but him. I can't picture the story being told visually by anybody else but him. And I figured that would happen, by the time we got to the end of the issue. Where here we are with issue 2, and it's already happened. This art is perfect. It suits the impending sort of cynicism of Gotham, the sort of slide that Gotham takes down into, a more despair-filled city in a way, a city that's gray, as opposed to bright and colorful and happy. A city that's more dreary and dirty. Uh, I don't know what that says about my love of Phil Hester's art, or the way I perceive Phil Hester's art, but yeah, I got
But
like halfway through this, and I was like, yeah, I don't want anyone else to draw this.
yeah.
The the angular style he uses, especially in faces, works perfectly for this story. Especially Sam Bradley as he's trying to rescue this baby, as he's kind of taking all this punishment. He's got bandages on his face half of the issue for all the punishment that he's taken. And Phil Hester's style of art suits it just perfectly. So I'll let Rocky talk a little bit more about the story beats and the plot itself. But um, I've never, I don't, can't recall ever having read a story that had Slam Bradley in it. But this story is quickly making me a fan of Slam Bradley. And the character work from Tom King is very interesting, especially in terms of the Waynes. Richard Wayne, Constance. They're very strong outwardly. They're basically, for lack of a better term, they are the king and queen of Gotham. Everybody looks up to them, and I'm sure thinks that their life is just great because they're rich and they have power and influence and all that. But their dynamic, their relationship, isn't even all that it seems. It seems dysfunctional at times. Um, and I don't know. They're really complex, and there's a lot, kind of more than meets the eye to them. So I was a big fan of this issue. I mean, I liked the first issue. I liked where the story was going, but the character work here and the art just elevated the second issue for me tremendously. And I cannot wait to see where this goes. What are your thoughts?
Well, first I'll comment. You started talking about the art. The first half of this issue, the art is just, I think, surpasses the second half. And of course, it's apples and oranges. But I don't. I wish I failed to possess the adequate way to. I think I got to reread Scott McCloud's Making Comics, or whatever it is. Sometimes I lack the language upon which to adequately describe this beautiful art, but I love on some of these pages how Slam Bradley sort of just pops off the page, and he's overwhelming. He takes, so you got multiple panels, but Slam Bradley's presence takes the overshadows three of the panels, and the way it just cries out that, I mean, he's the central figure, and he's the embodiment of Gotham City. And one of the things that really hammers home here, that is magnified by Phil Hester's art, which is so tragic, is this is the beginning of Gotham City becoming a crime-ridden, basically shithole. Because one of the things that's rammed for home here is that when Slam Bradley is being interrogated, he's being interrogated because as a his partner was killed at the end of last issue because his partner went to follow the young woman Sue, who gave him the note that he ended up taking to the Waynes that contained the ransom letter saying, we've taken your daughter Helen Wayne. This is a Helen Wayne kidnapping. And what's so interesting here is that Gotham City has a very low crime rate. It's only had 6 people murdered in the last year compared to Metropolis that had 73. This is a Gotham City in the 1940s that actually has a very low crime rate. And they brag about that, and the commissioner takes pride in this fact. And Slam Bradley, this is sort of like, it's almost like the golden age of Gotham before it became more corrupt. And an older Slam Bradley, we have to remember, is narrating this tale, and we know that he's talking to modern day Batman, essentially telling Batman that this was Gotham before it fell, and that the end of this story is going to hearken in and be a harbinger of a darker Gotham that will follow, that will require a Batman to do battle against the high crime rate. Because it's so hilarious to hear that there was a time when Gotham City had a lower crime rate than Metropolis. Are you kidding me? So that's interesting. But meanwhile, the story gets very interesting too, because this Sue woman comes back into the picture, and as Richard and Constance are dealing with Slam gets these. He ultimately, when the interrogation of him is finished by the Gotham City police, they let him go because they got no evidence that he killed his own partner, and of course, why would he? Even though it appears that his partner was killed with his own gun, they let him go. They don't have any evidence against him. The reality, it looks as if this Sue person is sort of like the Catwoman in this time period, and she has something to do with sort of setting him up to try to, have Richard and Constance pay a ransom of $100,000. But there's something else at play here, because Slam Bradley can see through it. It ends up that the person who is giving Slam Bradley the notes to take to the Waynes basically says, come to this particular spot on the top of Finger Tower, as a reference to Bill Finger, one of the co-creators of Batman. Come to the top of Finger Tower and bring $100,000 with you, and we'll give you the note telling you where your daughter is. Well, it's all basically a setup. The daughter's not there, but this Sue is there to take the money, and it seems as if this Sue is sort of like a Catwoman. She's a thief, and maybe she's part of this setup, but clearly somebody else is. There might be other forces behind the scenes here. And there's so many moving parts here that, is the real person behind it all this Sue character who's sort of like the quasi Catwoman, or is there a larger, more powerful person at play? I get a sense that there is, but we don't know who it is yet. And in any event, this is all brought to a head through the incredible art of Phil Hester, and you really get a sense here that this is a Gotham that is losing its innocence, and it's losing its innocence through not only this story as it plays out with the hints of a Batman, because all the ransom notes are signed by the Bat-man, and even now the appearance of a Sue who's like a cat woman, and the the hints of corruption in the Gotham City Police Department. This is Gotham on the cusp of becoming the dark Gotham, gritty Gotham that we know is going to harbor in the future of the real Batman. And for a second issue into the first, this was a really good continuation of the story, because I got to tell you, at the beginning in the first issue here, I was openly wondering, to what extent is Tom King going to pull all the plot threads from the Lindbergh kidnapping? Because this was inspired by the Lindbergh kidnapping in the 1920s, but this doesn't feel like the Lindbergh kidnapping anymore. It probably might steal some real life plot points from that, but it feels like a story unique into itself, and that's a compliment to Tom King. And I know some people give him a hard time that he maybe takes things from other narratives and real life narratives too much, but I think it works here, and this feels like its own unique story. So yeah, good comic.
Yeah, and they definitely, as you said, they take Slam Badly, they interrogate him, and they let him go. But it needs to be said, not before they beat the living shit out of him.
Yeah.
And whoever this current police commissioner is of Gotham in this timeline, I mean, there's a reason Gotham has less crime than Metropolis. and has everything to do with his Gestapo tactics. So, you can take that for what you will, whether that's better or worse than Gotham now. But it all goes back to that thing about freedom or security. The more security you want, the more you want to be protected from crime and chaos and evil deeds. The less freedom you have, and the more freedom you have, unfortunately, there's going to be people that take advantage of that and don't want to operate within the confines of the law. So definitely a stark reminder of that from Tom King. So all right, up next we have Dark Knights of Steel number 8. I can't believe we're only on number 8 from this series because it feels like it's been coming out forever, but it's because we've had other one-shots and tie-ins and whatnot. So War of the Three Kingdoms, written by Tom Taylor, art is by Yasmin Putri, colors are by Arif Prianto, and letters are by Wes Abbott. And we get our first look at the Green Man, who definitely seems like a mashup between looks almost like Batman's costume in a way, but it's clearly the Joker, yet he has a Green Lantern ring. So
Yeah.
definitely a mashup of a bunch of different characters. But there's a lot that goes down in this issue, and it feels like we're getting toward the end game. What'd you think of this?
I love this. This is I guess I sound like a broken record. I'm pretty sure I started off saying I love this with every issue of Dark Knights of Steel. This one really ramped it up. I know that this is typical Tom Taylor in the good way, in terms of this is Injustice, where Injustice always threw you a loop. With every issue of Injustice, you were just waiting for a new curveball of some kind, and you never knew. Everybody was at stake in terms of who could be removed off the playing field, be taken out of the narrative at any time. And boy, do we get that here in spades. And all the plots that in the previous 7 issues, the plots have been coming together. We know that Prince Kal-El has been taken captive. We know that there's a person going around who has impersonated Supergirl Kara and has killed the King of Storms, Jefferson Pierce. We know that Queen Anissa, of Thunder and Lightning, Jefferson Pierce's daughter, is now Queen Anissa. She's now queen of the Kingdom of Storms, and she is now teaming up with Hippolyta of the Amazons to approach the Elves, because the Elves have believed are the ones to have killed King Pierce, I guess. Meanwhile, the Green Man, or Oliver Queen, was the one who took out and killed King Jor-El. And we have this mysterious Green Man, who I think it's very interesting. Who was this Green Man? We thought maybe he was Lex Luthor, but he's kind of like a cross between Lex Luthor and the Joker and Green Lantern. One of the things to notice about the Green Man, and it's fairly obvious thanks to the great lettering. Let's give a shout out to a letterer for the time, to Wes Abbott on the lettering. It's clear that the Ring is talking to him. Now, I'm not sure, is the Ring talking to the Green Man? Because the Green Man is talking to the Ring, or is somebody communicating to the Green Man through the Ring? So is the Ring talking to him, or is he talking to someone in the Ring? I don't know, but that's kind of curious. If it's not the Ring talking to the Green Man, then who's on the other end? Is it Martian Manhunter? Is it somebody else? And I know that Martian Manhunter, I think, is the primary suspect, but somebody is controlling this Ring, or speaking through the Ring to this Joker-like Green Man character. And they want to clearly somebody wants to foment a war between the kingdoms, between the Amazons, between the Elves, between the Kingdom of Storms. And everything's building to a head. In the meantime, we've got Oliver Queen freeing Dinah Lance, who are prisoners. The Elves have got a bunch of metahumans prisoners, and obviously they got Oliver Queen prisoner because he killed King Jor-El, and Dinah Lance is a prisoner for crimes of which we're unaware of, but she's got that sonic scream, and he teaches her to obviously aim her sonic blast. So that's interesting. And there's a wonderful scene where Amanda Waller and Harley Quinn as emissaries approach Hippolyta and Queen Anissa as they're approaching the Kingdom of El, to basically hopefully sue for some kind of peace. And boy, oh boy, does that go catastrophically awry. Poison Ivy ends up, Constantine defies Queen Hippolyta and says, "You can't let Amanda Waller and Harley Quinn just walk away." He tries to take them out. They're saved by Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy then's taken out by the Green Man. And then lo and behold, who shows up but Queen Laura herself. And wow, I got to tell you, that is a hell of a scene. The last few images, the last few pages here, where Queen Laura makes her appearance. You could just feel the ground shaking. I mean, just fantastic art by Yasmin Putri. Just a, it's just it feels it feels action packed. This feels like it's in the setting that it's in, and this does feel like a medieval superhero DC tale. That's what I like about it, and it's defined by Putri's art. And what what happens in that scene where what Queen I don't even want to almost don't want to ruin it for people, but oh, what a graphic scene and right in front of her daughter, the fate of Queen Hippolyta here. You know that it's a hell of a way to end an issue, and I think this definitely, in my view, has my vote for final page of the week. I mean, I always remember Jeff Johns as a master at the final page reveal in terms of the cliffhanger, but this is whew, after this final page, man, I so desperately want to read the next issue. But I really enjoyed this. I just had a shit-eating grin on my face. How'd you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of anything to say beyond that image that's there on the screen. I mean, Laura just, I mean, slices Hippolyta, literally slices Hippolyta in half, right in front of Diana. Diana's there yelling, "Mother!" Um, so many times over the years, right, we've had stories of Jor-El coming to visit Cal, whether it's he was plucked from the moment of Krypton's destruction or some kind of imaginary tale or what have you. We have so much more of a sense of who Jor-El is, and certainly back in the Silver Age, he was kind of the square-jawed, straight-laced, you know, um, father figure, for lack of a better term, right? Like
Mm.
Ward Cleaver in a superhero outfit, basically, in a Kryptonian outfit. Um, and then most recently with Brian Michael Bendis, it's been maybe a more of a Machiavellian type character where he's been pulling strings and maybe he's involved in some things that perhaps helped lead to the destruction of Krypton, and it wasn't all cut and dry. We very rarely have gotten characterization from Laura beyond just a mother figure who is just, her characterization is just, oh, she's just sad. She's just sad because Krypton's exploding and she has to send her son away. So it's not like this characterization of Laura rings untrue, but at the end of the day, she's still Superman's mother. And so you, by association, you kind of think, well, she'd never do something like that. But the reality is
Yeah.
we don't have any idea what Laura is capable of. And certainly she feels,
We
if
do
she
now.
feels, yeah, if she feels that Hippolyta is complicit in the murder of her husband, why wouldn't she take the chance for revenge? Right. So yeah, absolutely no idea where this is going to go from here. Um, Tom Taylor certainly has a way with cliffhangers and with big moments. And I can't imagine that there's not going to be a lot of people talking about this on social media, and certainly not just the last page of the week, but certainly a candidate for moment of the year. I guess we'll
Yeah,
see how it all plays out.
certainly.
All right, up next we have Poison Ivy #6. This is written by G. Willow Wilson, Brian Level on pencils and inks. Arif Prianto does the colors. Hassan Atzman Elhau on letters. And we also have Marcio Takara on the art for pages 14 through 22, with inks for those by Jay Leistein. For some reason, I thought that this was a 6-issue mini, but the way it ended, I was like, well, that doesn't necessarily feel like an ending. And you go to the last page and it says next, a new chapter begins. So I went and looked, and yeah, sure enough, there's an issue 7 solicited, but this is definitely the end of the first arc. I won't go so far as to say that it redeems Poison Ivy, but it does kind of explain why she was going around killing people the way that she was. Rocky and I both talked about it from the first issue, how it seems like she's gone not even back to her villainous ways, but the pendulum has swung way over, that she's more brutal and more violent than she ever has been. That's sort of explained here. Um, and then in an effort to keep herself alive, and this all stems from what we've seen in recent Batman issues and Harley and whatnot, where and also going back to Heroes in Crisis, where Poison Ivy was basically killed and then resurrected, but in kind of separate as a human form and as a plant form. And then recently we saw those two different sides come back together, but maybe not in a cohesive way that allowed her to sort of live the life that she lived earlier. And so she's kind of being poisoned by these spores, these fungi, and she had decided, and I'm giving just a huge overview, she had decided that, if she's going to die anyway, that she's going to make sure the earth is safe. And so she was going to spread this sort of disease, this fungal disease that she was carrying to all of mankind. Mankind would die out and the natural earth would then heal. And she realizes in this issue that part of why she was feeling that way was some manipulation from the Floronic Man, Jason Woodrue. And it wasn't all her, so it's a little bit of a way out in a way. But what's interesting is when she realizes that and actually defeats Woodrow, and even she admits, well, he's defeated for now, but even though we see him die, I'm sure he's going to come back in some way, shape, or form because he is so tied into nature and the natural world. But the way she heals herself is that she she eats the Floronic Man's body, and again, it's a plant-like body and what have you. But by eating that, his powers to regenerate and heal from really catastrophic wounds are sort of passed on to her. So we know she's not going to die now. She does still want to make a difference, and she's back to being a little more on the side of angels, I'll say. But it seems like she wants to still fight what she considers evil. So, think of people that are polluting the planet, um, big oil and that sort of thing. So, I did appreciate that G. Willow Wilson brought Harley in at the end, or what Pamela believes is the end of her life, kind of reinforcing that relationship that many people really enjoy. And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I think they make a good couple. I'm not a big Harley or Ivy fan, so it doesn't. If they were to be split up, it wouldn't make any difference to me. Do they work together as a couple? Yeah, 100% they do. Um, and so I do appreciate that um, it's being reinforced here by Wilson. And if there's anything I would have liked in this issue, we saw last issue as Poison Ivy was closer to death and was thinking about her decisions and the choices that she's made. She was sort of hallucinating the Batman as being kind of her moral compass. We get just a little tiniest bit of that here. I like that dynamic. I like that aspect of the story. So I hope that we haven't seen the last of it because I think it works really, really well. And the last thing I'll say is, as we have had throughout the series, gorgeous covers. Um, Especially the Jenny Frison cover, I think for me is the one that really stands out head and shoulders. Love the hair, love the coloring, both of Ivy's skin and her fingernails and her lips and makeup and whatnot. So, yeah, curious to see where it goes from here now that we have an Ivy who's a little less evil and maybe a little more familiar to anybody who's read stories of her in the last 4 or 5 years. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll just add a couple things. Harley, or pardon me, Poison Ivy appears to, after eating the Floronic Man, which, by the way, I guess I was a little bit more shocked than you. I mean, she ate the Floronic Man. I mean, of course,
Yeah, but he's
I
plant.
mean, she ate him. I mean,
He's yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I was like, ugh, that's nasty. But
yeah,
then I
I
reminded
mean,
myself, well, but
well,
he's not flesh and bone.
no, no, I know that, but I do find it
It's
kind of
like
funny that she's got
she's
a
eating a
PhD
salad.
in she's got a PhD in chemistry, and she figures that the best way to get some chemicals in her
Yeah,
body is to eat the Floronic
yeah,
Man. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
yeah.
Anyways, it's I'm having fun with it, but um, apparently she not only is healed from the lamia spores and her sort of like that her darker impulses were maybe kept, I guess were ameliorated because of that. But now apparently when a child approaches her, she can when she looks at people now, when she looks not only at children, but I'm inferring that when she looks at all life now, she can see what she referred to as the ecosystem of symbiotic bacteria. She could see the ecosystem of symbiotic bacteria all over the child. In other words, all of us are a universe unto ourselves. It's sort of like the bed mites you have in the bed. You don't even realize they're there. We are all a universe unto ourselves. Our bodies are made up of all kinds of things, and we have homeostasis. And Pamela Isley, this is what I find ironic about this. I was a little bit confused by the ending here. Not that it's rocket science. She ends with her. She kind of doubles down on her resentment toward humanity destroying the planet, and but she doubles down on her love for Harley. She says at the end, Harley, I love you and only you. Yet she very, very clearly talked about protecting what is precious. She very clearly showed some degree of kindness and compassion to the child. So it's not really true. It's interesting that Ivy herself becomes an unreliable narrator. She seems to speak very ill will of certain aspects of humanity hurting the planet, and yet the fact is she's quite capable of loving her fellow human being, not just Harley Quinn. And that's what I took out of it, and I kind of like that subtlety there, that Poison Ivy is capable of more love, I think, than Ivy herself gives her credit for, and I credit that to the writing of J. Willow Wilson. So I actually enjoy this issue because of that. And you're right, this feels like the end of a 6-issue miniseries. I didn't realize there's going to be another issue coming out.
Yeah, I mean, her, and I guess it could have ended like that, but it just seemed like, okay, she's got these newfound powers, and her power level has fluctuated over various times over the last 5 years. What does she have now that she's consumed the Floronic Man and she no longer has the Lamia-spores, as you mentioned? And yeah, just the way the dialogue is, the scripting is at the end of the issue. I was like, well, yeah, it definitely seems like there's more to come. And then I noticed that, yeah, next whole new era. I'm like, wait, next, as in next mini series, or
Uh,
but yeah, there's a 7 and 8 solicited, so I guess we'll see. All right, up next we have Sword of Azrael #4. This is the end of this miniseries. Written by Dan Waters, art is by Nicolas Semegia, colors by Marisa Louise, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. Have no idea where this goes from here. Actually, I take that back. This is a 6-issue mini, not a
yeah,
4.
yeah.
So there are 2 issues left. It says right there on the cover, 4 of 6. But it could have ended here, but I'm glad it doesn't, because there's something going on with Azrael that is so different than what I expected from Dan Waters. But give us your thoughts on it first before I get into that.
Well, I had my initial review of this comic was going to be very harsh because I read it twice and I didn't understand what the hell was going on. And then I got pissed off at myself because I said, how can I not understand what's going on? So I read it a third time. And then all of a sudden it started to come together. And I don't know. I'm trying to bring up the pictures here. It's taken a long time for whatever reason. But in any event, this is what we do is that we get the history. We get the history of I guess a new history, a new origin for Azrael. At least it's new to me, and that is that Saint Dumas. It takes place in the past. We're showed excerpts of the past where the original Saint Dumas actually ends up battling or finding a what he calls a an angel maker box, some alien tech in a volcano. Like 800 years ago, the original Saint Dumas retrieved an angel maker box in a volcano, and apparently it's this angel maker box which it unleashes power and knowledge, and but it's been sort of so all this time that we're thinking that this is all religious and all this the power of Saint Dumas, and that the house of Saint Dumas, upon which Azrael, the angel of vengeance, he's the head and the protector of the house of the Saint Dumas house. That in the fact of the matter is that no, this is all based on alien tech. It's all based on a lie. This is all based on this a glorified angel box, which is based on some kind of alien tech. And the original protector of this angel box was this one demon character they're calling the Satan. And ultimately, modern day Azrael. What happened is that this Saint Dumas, when he died, the memory of what he did was kept by this angel box. And over the last 800 years, this angel box became the program and became the system that sort of programs the minds of the various protectors who will go by the name Azrael. And that's kind of interesting, but it's not based on faith in God. It's not based upon a power of God or religion or faith. It's all some kind of alien tech. And that's kind of interesting because I don't know if does that incorporate maybe the Justice League Odyssey run where there was some alien influence on Azrael during that run. And but it's interesting. And then even bringing in this demon that for 800 years that was trapped in this volcano, he's ultimately defeated and destroyed by Jean Paul Valley. Uh, he he ends up, I guess, discovering that this um, he discovers that the truth about this mother that about this angel maker. And I have to admit, what confused me though, so I thought that part was kind of cool. That maybe the Church of Saint Dumas or whatever is all based on a lie, and it's really alien tech. But at the end, we have Father Valley come in. Now, Father Valley made his first appearance in the pages of Bram V's Catwoman, and here we have Dan Waters utilizing, Dan Waters is good friends with Ram V. At least they seem to collaborate well. They hang out, I understand, from time to time, and he's using. I'm sure he got Ram V's blessing to use Father Valley. Father Valley, of course, is familiar with I believe is even from the same I don't know, Church of Saint Dumas, and but for some reason Jean Paul Valley calls Carl this father Carl, who is Father Valley, and I didn't know they knew each other. So this is news to me. I didn't think that they really knew each other, and I don't think that was revealed in Catwoman. But if it was, sorry, I just forget. So I'm not really sure. Father Valley is essentially responsible for killing a bunch of people. I didn't really I don't understand that aspect of the story, so I'm a little bit confused by that. This is the fourth issue. I'm hoping it'll be explained more in the fifth and sixth issue. Um, Look, cutting to the chase here. Sorry for being long-winded. There's a story here, and it's interesting. I just thought it was for me personally. I thought it was choppy for me. I had to read it 3 times, and I do appreciate it better now. I'm glad I did because this is a game changer, I think, for the mythology of Jean Paul Valley. And I think it was far more interesting. I'm glad I took the patience to sort of relax, take and read it 3 times for my own sensibilities. And I appreciated it more. I'm still completely confused by how Father Valley fits into all of this. And the language that Dan Waters uses for the dialogue, he can, because he was 800 years ago, he was writing a scene from 800 years ago. They're speaking in that language of religious faith and everything else. I really wasn't putting it together very easily. That's on me. I'll take responsibility for that. But um, I so let's just say that I enjoyed it, but I wish it didn't have to take me 3 reads to get to the point where I can say this was a good issue. I'm not sure. People have been enjoying this. Most reviewers who've been reading this have been enjoying the series, and I have been too. And that's why I read it not 2 but 3 times, because I knew that Dan Waters, he's a smart writer. I've enjoyed his writings. You and I have reviewed his stuff, and he generally knows. I know that he knows what he's doing, and so I knew that I had to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm glad I did. But this was a little bit of a miss for me in terms of my struggle to understand it, but I'm glad I stuck with it. But I still got some questions as to what the hell Father Valley is doing at the end of this comic. But what do you think?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, and I'll get into some of the reasons why. But in terms of Father Valley and what he has to do with Azrael, Father Valley is Carl. If you recall, go back and read the Catwoman Annual 2023, which gets Father Valley's origin before he becomes the assassin. And it explains how John Paul Valley's father was the mentor to Carl. And when John Paul Valley's
Mm,
father basically sent his son away, sent John Paul away because he didn't feel right. He had too much blood on his hands. He didn't feel like he could raise a son and do right by him. That was sort of Carl didn't like that, right? Because Carl saw um, at John Paul's Valley's father as a father figure, as a mentor, and so if if John Paul's father wasn't good enough to be a son, to be a father to John Paul, then what did that say about Carl? Right? Like, no, I
Right.
see you as a father, but you send your real son away because you're not worthy of being a father. Then what does that say about me? Like, am I
Yeah.
just you don't care about me enough to send me away? Like, so there's a lot of different layers there, and that's written by Ram V, who created the Father Valley character. I imagine Dan Waters must have had some interaction with Ram V about this to bring Father Valley into this. We know Dan Waters has been working on Azrael as a character for quite a long time. Batman Urban Legends, we've had different stories, and then we had a one shot, and now we've got this series. So in terms of why I'm loving it, there were some hints, I think, in the Batman Urban Legends story that Dan Waters did, that he was going to get rid of some of the religious zealousness of the character, kind of get away from the religion as a driving motivation. And I really like I find Azrael to be fascinating as a character,
Yeah.
but the religious aspect, if you take it too far, it's kind of a turnoff for me. Like, I can see it as sort of a motivation, but when it goes too far, I don't know. Maybe I've just seen too much religious zealotry in my life and seen the pain that it can
Yeah.
cause. I mean, wars have been fought. No, I don't think any loss of human life is greater than the amount killed in the name of religion. So for me, you lean too far into that, and it just gets that's not what I want in my comics, and that's just me personally.
It,
So
it might have been editorially driven too. Maybe they
yeah,
want to move away from that.
yeah, it really could have, because again, I got that feeling when I read Dan Waters' first, um, like his first take on Azrael. But then as it went along, it swung the other way, and we saw John Paul working at a hospice, and he was all into reading the Bible and praying, and that was the way that he kept Azrael at bay. And it just, like, I was like, what happened to that seed, that promise that I felt like we were going to see um, of it swinging the other way? And then all of a sudden, with this character of Satan, with this angel box, which is it an orphan? It doesn't look like a mother box, but could it be an orphan box? Could it be some other kind of
Yeah.
fourth world technology? We don't exactly know. But basically, what Dan Waters has done here is taken all the religious fanaticism of the Order of Saint Dumas, all this belief in God and all that, and he's crumpled it up into a little ball, and he's tossed it over his shoulder, and he said, "It's all bullshit." I love that. I love it because it leans into the problem that I fundamentally have with religion, which is religion, when you think about it, is a construct of man, right? And man inherently is flawed, and anything that man believes or creates, because it's created by an imperfect individual, by definition is also imperfect and could be flawed and could be wrong. So that's just the way that I see it. And so I take anything with a grain of salt. Maybe you call me a doubting Thomas or whatever. Um, Belief is pure, right? If you believe in something, that's what you believe. You have the right to believe it as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And that, I think, is something that's pure and cannot be, derided. Basically, you could be wrong in your belief, because we all can make mistakes, and that's fine. But I don't begrudge you that, because nobody's perfect, right? but but religion, to draw lines in black and white and say this is right and this is wrong and it's in the Bible and blah blah blah, to me that just smacks of arrogance. Because again, the Bible, written by humans, written by imperfect beings. So again, I just don't prescribe to that. I just, it's
Well, it also
not.
reads into the fact that whenever, it makes sense that if it's alien tech, you know, human beings, if we don't possess the scientific knowledge, it's just like what did Isaac Asimov said, like to a primitive people, future technology would look like a miracle. So it would make sense that how would they 800 years ago, how would you explain alien tech to those people? It's probably easier to explain it in terms of faith and belief because it might be powered by you don't even know the nature of the power of this angel box. So it would make sense that it's probably easier to explain these types of powers through faith as opposed through science, because they weren't exactly embracing science. Well, in fact, you could say a lot of people in today's world don't embrace science.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
take sufficiently advanced technology back to a more primitive time, yeah, it looks like magic or a miracle or some unknown power. So how else are you going to explain it? Which is part of why I think religion came to exist. But again, getting back to the concept here, what I love about this is the fact that Dan Waters has taken all that, all those religious roots and said, no, 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 that's not actually what it was. It's something much more, in my mind, much more interesting, much more rooted into the fiction of the DC universe, and opens up a lot more stories to be told. What I wonder if the original creators of Azrael, Denny O'Neil and all those guys, if they would mind this change, because it certainly is a fundamental change. Um, but I never had a chance to really. I met Denny O'Neil a couple times. Never really had a chance to speak to him in depth. But he's such a fan of story. I have a feeling he wouldn't mind at all. But yeah, I thought this was fantastic. The Nicholas Semeja art, although it's not my favorite style aesthetically, it definitely suits the story that's being told, and the way Azrael defeats Satan, or the way Satan is defeated, I should say, because Azrael doesn't really defeat him, is also really interesting and fun. So
Yeah.
all right, up next we have Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo, Book One. This is from Marc Silvestri. Arif Prianto does the colors. I couldn't find any credits inside. I'm going just based off the what's on the cover. So Silvestri does ink himself, because we do have some pages in the back that are just his black and white pencils. So Silvestri's writing it. Silvestri's drawing it. This was announced at San Diego Comic Con so long ago, I don't even remember when it was. But being that Silvestri is drawing it and inking it and writing it, you can understand why it's taking so long. Um, the art is gorgeous. It is so fantastic. If you like Marc Silvestri art, that's worth the price of admission on its own. This is definitely out of continuity in terms of a little bit of the characterization of Joker, a little bit of the characterization of Batman. It definitely seems to be a younger Batman who's a little more toward the beginning of his career. We even see Harley show up here, and it's when she still considers the Joker her boyfriend. So definitely, as I said, more of an early type story. So as far as the story itself, I mean, it's the Joker, so I'm not predisposed to like it. That being said, I love Marc Silvestri's art, always have. Marc himself is a very fun creator, great guy to meet, very humble and appreciative of his fans. So I'm definitely picking this up to support his work. Um, I will say this, Marc is most known as an artist, but he's written things before, and some of his earlier work that he wrote, the scripting wasn't always the best. Sometimes the dialogue felt a little stilted. But I thought that this dialogue flowed pretty well. Um, but again, it's clear from context that this is, not in continuity. And I mean, Alfred is there, and uh, uh, I, this kind of stands on its own. So jury's still out for me on how much I'll enjoy this in terms of it being a Batman and Joker story. I get the idea and the kind of the attractiveness for Batman and Joker fans of having them team up. We have seen them team up in the past, very rarely. Batman seems to be willing to team up here a little easier than I think that he might necessarily be willing to. Um, but maybe he's just going along with the Joker as a way to capture him and to get answers. Um, but this was enjoyable. But personally, for me, mostly just for the awesome Marc Silvestri art, more so than the story itself. And again, that's just because not a fan of the Joker. But I know people have been highly anticipating this, so I'm sure it's going to do well. What do you think?
First, I want to give a shout out. I actually really love. I love the. I've never seen the the Batman's utility belt being all black before. It's right on the cover and throughout the comic. It just looks epic. I think it looks awesome. I love the bat belt. I love the design that Silvestri gives the Batman's utility belt. All black with sort of like the bat, well, surprise, surprise, bat symbols as sort of instead of pouches, like bat symbols. It just looks more cool and it matches the big black emblem on his chest. I think it looks really cool. I really love the design here. Batman looks fantastic. Joker looks fantastic. Uh, even the multiple covers that we're getting, gorgeous black and whites of Harley Quinn, the Joker, black and white of the Silvestri's main cover, just really good stuff. Harley Quinn looks I mean, I think it's because we've gotten so much crazy Harley Quinn lately that I'm actually really enjoying. I really love seeing this really bitch bad Harley, and we got a hint of bad Harley in the latest issue of Harley Quinn, who's come back, resurrected out of the Lazarus pit. We got a little hint of that with Stephanie Phillips, issue 23 of Harley Quinn that we reviewed last week. And seeing this really bitchy looking, raggedy looking, Joker's my boyfriend and I love him type of Harley. it's I have to admit I kind of miss that a little bit. You know, sometimes I like the little psychopathic Harley once in a while. Why not? Um, and you know, and the opening pages show Harley being captured by someone. Somebody has captured her and is not letting her go and is using her to sort of lure in the Joker. And meanwhile, there's an ex-cop named Ryan Lang who's been murdered and through a and he's been murdered and his head's been ripped off, his limbs have been pulled off. Batman investigates only to find out that he discovers that Joker's DNA is and as well as this cop's DNA is mixed in with the body of a vagrant, and not sure what's going on, but there's these creatures that look like radical, monstrous versions of the Joker that are going around, and they're creating havoc in Gotham. And in the midst of all this, Joker comes to Batman and says, I need your help because somebody took something really important to me. He doesn't say they took Harley. He says somebody took something that I own. You know, of course it's Joker. He's not going to refer to a human. Of course he's going to refer to Harley as a thing. He doesn't say it's Harley, but we know it's Harley from the beginning of the issue. So it's a nice callback to the beginning of the issue and throughout the issue, fantastic, gorgeous art as Batman does battle against these creatures. And um, as is common in a lot of the best Batman stories, I love watching along. I know it's kind of tropey, we see it a lot, but damn, I love it anyway. When Batman's fighting an opponent, and you get the inner voice of Batman, you know, trying to figure out his opponent's moves and you know and noticing when his own bones break and what have you. I just love that because it just it pulls me in. It pulls me into into the fighting, and it makes me feel. It gives me the illusion that there's a part of me that's fighting along with Batman, and I just love that. And the art here is just fantastic. We're in the midst of this does have a 90s feel to it to me, or at least early 2000s, and in all the good ways. In all the good ways, Marc Silvestri's art is fantastic. Catwoman here. There's a one page where Catwoman does show up briefly. She looks absolutely gorgeous. I hope she's going to be in this series more, just so I can see Marc Silvestri draw her. I can't wait till he draws Harley again. Actually, I would love to see. I hope this comes out in a nice hardcover, so I can enjoy the whole damn thing and maybe even oversize this sucker because you know this might be one of those things where you know I don't think the story is going to necessarily break any new ground, but the art is you know there's Marc Silvestri he's Jim Lee level in many ways. At least he's very Jim Lee ish. And so I think that in itself is going to get a lot of people's attention. But I really enjoyed this for an opening issue, and the art alone has me coming back for more. But I have to admit, so does the very bitchy, psychotic Harley.
Yeah, I think 100% it's going to be. I mean, they're not. They're paying have been paying Marc Silvestri for years to work on this, so I'm sure they see it as an investment. And this is an evergreen title, something that's going to be in print for a long time in a collected edition. So I'm sure it's going to get an absolute edition, hardcover. Um, what is it they call it when it's when
Absolute.
they not absolute. Absolute's like oversized, but
Right.
sometimes they'll do like where it's just the pencils and inks.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I
I can't remember what they call it.
Artist edition
Unplugged
or
or
something,
something.
or
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I would definitely expect that. All right, up next we have the Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, issue number 2. This is from writer Matthew Rosenberg. Carmine Di Giandomenico is the artist, Eric Prianto on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. And then there is a backup by Rosenberg with art and colors, I should say, by Francesco Francavilla and letters by Troy Petrie. What did you think of this?
I this well, this the premise of this entire story. Well, first let me start off. I love this. There's a variant cover here, and I don't even know who draws it, but it's Joker dancing with Harley. It looks amazing, and there's a cloud in the background. There's an explosion in the background, and the Joker's face is in the image of the clouds. It looks
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's Lee Bermejo.
Yeah,
I don't even need to look it up. I
yeah,
can tell just by the
yeah.
style.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I love it, and yeah, all the covers are pretty damn good here. Wow, and holy moly, there's man. I don't know who the hell the artist is, but there's one with just showing the Joker's teeth and mouth and bleeding and saliva and sweat, and it's disgusting
Yeah,
to
that's
look
got
at.
to be uh, Francesco Mattina, I
Oh
think.
yeah, that looks really good. That's probably the 1 in 50 or something of the 1 in 25. But
Yeah, actually, I guess that one must be the Gabriel Delato.
okay.
Um, but it doesn't say. It does not say whether it's. No, no. I'm sorry. It is the Francesco Mattina. Yep.
Yeah, no,
Because we've got Carmine Domenico. There's 5 covers. One is by Carmine Di Domenico, Francesco Mattina, Lee Bermejo, Gabriel Delato, and then Kelly Jones and Michelle Madsen
yeah,
on the '90s variant. So yeah, the one with the teeth has got to be Matina because it's definitely his style, digital
yeah,
painted.
yeah. But so the story itself, Matthew Rosenberg's the writer, the art by Gino di Giodemonico. This is essentially a story of there is a fake Joker going around because the Joker takes a bunch of people hostage in the first issue, and one of the hostages tells his henchman to go kill, but this hostage that is killed, and this hostage has a bag over their head, is shot in the head, but this hostage doesn't die, and then oddly enough, it was really weird that this hostage that was killed wasn't actually dead, and when this hostage recovers, is still bleeding from the head, but this hostage thinks that he's the Joker. And so in the meantime, we have the real Joker going around. I think it's the real Joker going around to various cities around America, killing mob figures and what have you, and having his own sort of war on crime. Meanwhile, there's this other Joker who's been shot in the head, who is also causing a scene and thinks he's the Joker and getting into all types of trouble himself. And oddly enough, seems to have this is what's not working for me for this story because I don't know how this random guy who becomes the Joker, who thinks he's the Joker being shot in the head, he seems to know where to go to find Harley Quinn, and he has an interactions with Harley, and he has other interactions with other mobsters, and he ends up being he seems to be a fairly competent fighter, this fake Joker, and I'm not even sure how that's possible. I'm not even sure who this, but we don't really know who this hostage originally was, who's become the Joker. Uh, Meanwhile, Harley Quinn, he tries, this fake Joker goes and approaches Harley Quinn. And meanwhile, Jason Todd is looking for this fake Joker and ultimately finds him at the end of this story. And then the real Joker finds out about this fake Joker and wants to go after this fake Joker too, because of course he does. And there's a lot of chaos here, and I get it. At the same time, I'm not really sure. I mean, it's called the man who stopped laughing. Well, I guess the hostage who was shot in the head and comes back and thinks he's the Joker. Yeah, I don't imagine he finds it too funny. Harley Quinn beats him with a bat because she hates him, but I guess he's got the memory. He doesn't realize that the real Joker has a terrible relationship with Harley, and he just ends up getting the crap kicked out of him. And I'm not really sure, frankly, where all this is going. I feel that this is a little bit scattershot in its focus. Jason Todd naturally wants to try to find the Joker to all Jason Todd obviously hates the Joker. So that's a little bit cliche there. I'm not really sure where this is going. So you're gonna find. So they find the fake Joker. Then what? Well, then I guess they got to stop the real Joker. So I guess the I don't find this fake Joker really captivating enough yet. I feel like I'm missing sort of the hook. And if that's the hook, then I'm not really. I haven't been pulled into this story yet, um, because I don't. I'm not buying it yet. I need an explanation. I don't. I'm not buying into this. A random hostage doesn't get shot in the head and then suddenly knows all this stuff about the Joker. I'm not. I feel like I'm missing something, and maybe there's going to be some big reveal in a subsequent issue. But right now, I'm not getting it. I'm also not getting. There was at random times throughout this issue, they showed time. Like there's in some of the panels they showed 12:19 a.m. and 12:38 a.m. and why? Like I don't know why are they showing those random times 1:28 a.m. Why? Is there a bomb that's going to go off? Like I just don't get it. Like I really feel lost in this issue, and maybe I should have read this one 3 times too, and you can explain it, or you can explain it to me. But I I missed the story on this one. I didn't quite get it, and so this was a miss for me. Um so I like I said, great art. I love the art, but I'm not. I don't feel like I got a handle on where this is going, and this feels like a miss for me. But what do you think of it?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed it, especially considering it's a Joker book. First of all, I would say don't. I don't know that you're correct in saying real Joker, not real Joker, or real Joker hostage Joker, or what have you. There's nothing that's been shown so far in the 2 issues to show us that the guy who's acting like he's the real Joker is in fact the real Joker. I do wonder if this does not in some way tie into the 3 Jokers that we got from Jeff Johns, or last. I guess it's already been a year since we had that, and that was one of the most disappointing stories, especially for as long as it was announced and how long it took to come out. Great art by Jason Fabok, but the story I still am confused on. So were there 3 Jokers? Why were there 3 Jokers? Why were they like? It never was fully explained. So is this more of that? I don't know. In terms
Yeah.
of the timestamps, I kind of enjoy it because the story is not being told in a linear fashion. It does jump around. It's interesting that Matthew Rosenberg is making that choice to show us something that happens and then show us something that happens 20 minutes later, and then we jump 40 minutes later. Um, I don't recall that in the first issue, so
Yeah.
he's got to be. I got to think based on the level of talent that Matthew Rosenberg has, that he's doing that for a reason. So I don't have any idea where this is going either, um, but I'm okay with that because at least it feels like it's something new and not derivative, and that's saying something when you're talking about Joker, because God, it feels like every person has told their Joker story at this point, and it feels like oftentimes they're repeating themselves. So curious to find out, does this tie into Batman 3 Jokers? Um, and yeah, see where this is going. I haven't heard many people talking about this, um, so I am kind of curious in terms of titles named Joker. Or headlined by the Joker, we certainly had that James Tynion series, The Joker, that was really a James Gordon story that was amazing. So if you picked that up and ended up not liking it because you didn't feel like it had enough Joker, then maybe this is the book for you, because
Exactly.
there's so
Yeah.
much Joker that you got 2 of them here.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Okay, last book we're going to talk about in detail: The New Champion of Shazam, chapter number 3, written by Josie Campbell, art and cover by Evan Doc Shaner, lettering by Becca Carey. The strength of this book for me is the art. Evan Doc Shaner is the perfect person to be giving us a Mary Shazam book. I do like the layers of character that Josie Campbell is bringing to Mary, because Mary was always kind of the know-it-all, and not in an obnoxious way, but always kind of the straight-laced kid, the big sister that always did the right thing, never got in trouble, got good grades. Um, and we're seeing that there's more to her than this. You know, she's than that. She's not just this perfect Silver Age, you know, hero and alter ego who never makes mistakes. And she yells at one of her, her sisters, or her sister Darla in this, one of her siblings, Darla in this issue, about how she didn't want to leave Vassar. She didn't want to come home. It's a horrible thing to say, but it reminds us that Mary is just a teenager. She's just a teenager. She's just a kid. She's going to make mistakes, whether that's with being Mary Marvel, or you know, being Mary in her civilian identity. Um, but she's still, you know, as soon as she yells at her sister, she immediately feels bad. She's still a good person. She still has a good heart. She still wants to do the right thing. So I think Josie Campbell has an incredible grasp of who Mary is as a character, and I love the character development that we're getting in this series. Um, and I also like the pacing that we've had. It feels a little Silver Age in that it's been a very straightforward narrative, and as soon as Mary's one of Mary's professors at the community college that she transferred to shows up here, you know right away that she's behind all the disappearances. Like, it's so obvious, and I don't think we're meant to be fooled by Josie Campbell and Evan Chaner. I think they want us to know. They want it to be obvious to us, even as a reader, even if it's not obvious to Mary. So there's not any, you know, big surprises or big twists. That's not where the strength of this book is. The strength of this book is in the characterization and in the gorgeous art by Evan Shaner. So I'm a big fan. I've never really read that much Mary Marvel stuff, or um, really been that interested in Mary Marvel before, but Josie Campbell's making me a fan. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, first speculator alert. I think it's the first appearance by a character by the name of Babel, who is
Yeah.
the villain here, and he's a cool-looking villain. Kudos to Josie Campbell. I think she did a good job here. I think he's very potentially interesting character. This Doctor G character is a new villain as well, and she's been Doctor G is, it's revealed, she's behind a number of a lot of number of people who have gone missing, including Mary Bromfield, otherwise known as Mary Marvel, or the new Shazam. Her entire orphan family essentially went missing. Her parents have or foster parents have gone missing, and it's because of this Doctor G, and they're being utilized for I guess experiments, obviously by the Dr. G. And it should also be noted that this series began with Mary Bromfield going off to college in Vassar College, and she had to come back to Philadelphia with her family when her family disappeared, and so she lost out on going to her first year of college, which is really unfortunate. And she also lost. She also had a talking rabbit that talked to her. There were some fun Silver Age moments, and you talked about this comic book having a Silver Age feel, and it very much does. And that's why it's absolutely perfectly suited to have Evan Doc Shaner as the artist, because he's just, I can't think of anyone better to capture that Silver Age sensibility with that sort of innocence, but also with more of an adult, modern day artistic style that really works so well for it. I mean, Mary Bromfield is the type of girl next door sexiness. She's the, you know, Catwoman has her own degree of sexiness, as does Harley Quinn. But Mary Bromfield is one of those ones where she's she's not utilized enough. And whenever they have made her sexy, boy oh boy, you get covers with her wearing like a Black Adam outfit, like in the cover of JSA. I got a couple of Mary Marvel covers. There's one for Justice League International where she's holding Guy Gardner up and she's looking all sexy and like evil and naughty. And anyways, I don't want to digress too much, but in any event, this is nice to see the new Shazam, this Mary Marvel, get some love here, because probably with the new dawn of the DCU, we might be going back to Captain Marvel here. It's nice for Mary Marvel to have her day in the sun. Her fellow orphans, or her fellow brothers and sisters, Freddie, Pedro, Eugene, Darla, who are other members of the Marvel family, and of course Billy Batson's not on the playing field right now, but they play a role here too. They're a little bit jealous because for whatever reason, Mary's the only one that has the powers of Shazam right now, and how this is going to end. We only got one issue left. I would have liked to have seen this be a 6-issue series, but it's going to wrap up next issue. Uh, we get an appearance of this. We get an appearance of an older guy. What I forget his. It reminds me of the old classic. What the hell is his name? the old man here in this issue, his oh man, um, I'll get his name here. Dudley. Yeah, everyone calls him Uncle Marv. It just reminds me of the old classic Captain Marvel stories. So it's sort of nice to see him make an appearance because there was always the older gentleman, the fat chubby gentleman that was part of the Captain Marvel crew as well. So it's nice to see him here. So there's some really nice callbacks here and just some good action, some really heartfelt moments between her and Darla. And like you said, she is a young she I'm not sure if she's maybe 18, 19, maybe she's 21. She's going off to college. So I'm not sure how old Mary Bromfield is supposed to be, but I think she's probably just on the cusp of adulthood if she's going to college. But in any event, this is really nice. I enjoy this. I'm curious to see how it ends, this new Babel character. I wish maybe there was a little bit more of a challenge to her. The art's fantastic. I would like to see a little bit more action in this series. But you never know. Maybe it's going to end with some more action as well. But overall, this has been fun. This is the type of DC comics that when you take a character that we don't get to see very often, like Mary Marvel, these nice 4-issue miniseries, keep them 4 issues. I don't have an objection to that, and a quality story with great art. This is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I it's good to see somebody else headlining a Shazam book besides Billy, because the family is so big. So with Billy taken off the table, it's kind of interesting to see Mary take it on. Um, Although you could argue that the latest Shazam book, the most recent one by Jeff Johns, was more of a Shazam family book than just focused on Billy. But man, the delays really hurt that really hurt that book. So
Yes, they did.
anyway, that's going to do it for the individual issues. I will mention that in addition to the ones that we talked about, Batman Night Watch #3, which is kind of an all ages, more focused on almost an animated series type story, is out this week as well. We do have some collections. Batman Shadow War has a hardcover. Batgirls, the Clunrad series, has its first volume trade out. Task Force Z has Volume 1 hardcover. That's the first 6 issues of the recent Matthew Rosenberg series. And then Trial of the Amazons has a hardcover. Um, don't know that we could recommend that. It
No.
just wasn't. It just, I don't know. Maybe our expectations were too high, but that was a problematic series for both Rocky and I. Get what they were trying to do, but ultimately just don't think that it succeeded. But if you're curious, if you want to get it all in one volume, it does have the Artemis Wanted one shot, it has the Olympus Rebirth one shot, and the Nubia Coronation special, plus the Wonder Woman 781 through 784, the Wonder Woman 80th anniversary 100-page spectacular as well. So um, it gives you a lot of the Trial of the Amazons aftermath, if you will. So it's there if you are so inclined. All right. Anything
So
else you want to plug? Oh, I guess we
yeah,
need
well,
to
let's do
talk
our pick of
about
the week.
pick of the week. Yeah. Why you go first? Because I know there's no chance that we have the same pick of the week this time.
Well, my pick of the week would have to be Dark Knights of Steel.
Wow,
That's
that's not where I thought you were going to go.
Yeah,
But
no,
cool.
I just I because I just love that ending. I'm looking at him now, staring at the screen, and I mean there's some good ones here. I really like Batman. Um, I really like Batman, but I would have to
Yeah,
go with Dark Knights of Steel.
I thought about Batman briefly, and then I thought after I read it, I was going to go with Gotham City Year One, issue #2. I thought for sure that was going to be my pick.
Hmm.
But then I read Sword of Azrael. And
Oh, okay.
just based on the fact that Dan Waters took all that religious mumbo jumbo that's so wrapped up in the origin of Azrael and said, no, 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 I'm going to give you a more interesting origin for him that doesn't just lean into all these religious tropes. I just loved that. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the scene with his fight. I mean, he gets his ass kicked by Satan, um, the angel Satan, which was kind of the first Azrael that was built. But then through none of his own achievement or ability, he ultimately even though he gets his butt kicked, ends up winning the fight in a way, ends up victorious, ends up the survivor of that fight, which I thought was just fantastic. So yeah, so
Actually, yeah,
that's my pick of the week.
that's a good pick of the week. I'll go with Dark Knights of Steel. As a quick note, I didn't realize that Angel Box had created that Satan character. I didn't pick that up from the read. I just learned something and I read it 3 times. That's how come it can't be my pick of the week. It was just written in a way that I thought it was very choppy for me. But
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, a lot of that was in last week's. It talked about how, yeah, it was Satan was basically the first avenging angel that they built, and they built it so big, and then it that's why it was stuck in that cave, because it couldn't go very far away from the machinery that built it, that imbued it with all its powers,
okay.
because it had to constantly recharge and feed off other organs, basically, from people that came searching for the myth of Azrael. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my pick. Thought it was really enjoyable. So what else do you have for the people that you want to let them know? Have you had a chance to do your independent
Yeah, we do.
issue?
Jim and I, Weird Science, we just we reviewed True Cult #3 and Creep Show #2. That's up on the channel here. And there's a where I've discovered, as we and you and I discovered this when we review Scott Snyder, that as the issues accumulate, we don't we there's always a lot of new #1s coming out, but then God forbid, if you really love a #1, you want to review issue 2 and 3, and as they keep coming out, and so it's there's always something more that I can review. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be pumping out just myself, pumping out some extra independent titles that we don't have time to review. I might like review them, and so yeah, we'll see. But beyond that, it's a busy week for me at work. But what about you? You got any interviews coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a couple of creator-owned campaigns that are going to kick off on Zoop. So should have those coming up in the next week or so. I will remind everybody about my awesome conversation I have with J.M. DeMatteis for his creator-owned 4 different stories that are all having their first issues come out through Kickstarter. I encourage everybody to go check that out. And I also want to get back to, we owe you guys some best jacket reviews, and we've been remiss in getting those out. So I want to get caught up on those as well. So
Yeah, oh, yeah.
yeah, there's just never enough time. And as you intimated, Rocky, there's always new comics coming out that we read that I want to talk about, but it's just a matter of having time. So that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Don't forget, everybody, if you're listening to the audio only version of this, be sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe to Rocky's channel. Comic Space Boom ! Ring the notification bell, leave some comments about what your favorite book was this week, or if you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments below. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content. Conversely, if you check us out on YouTube all the time and you want to listen to our new Comics Wednesday episode, which is spoiler free, or any of the other interviews or content that comes out from the Comic Source, just go to wherever you get your podcasts and search for the Comic Source and subscribe. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. We appreciate your support as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.